Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we're covering a very, very cool book that I never checked out, and I'm surprised I never checked this out because it's right up my alley, and I'm very surprised that I heard of it, but I never even looked at it. It's a book called The American Vampire. It is by writers Scott Snyder and a little
horror writer. You might have heard of him.
You got a couple books you might have heard of. Stephen King is the other writer on this book, or on this this comic. Motherfucker, was writing comics. I didn't even know he was writing this stuff.
Yeah, the only one I knew he was on was The Dark Tower. So
right, but he didn't. I mean, he wrote Dark Tower,
Yeah.
and he's not even the writer on those comics. They have to credit him as the writer because he wrote the books.
Yeah.
And then whoever translated it, I think it was Peter David, did like the comic adaptation writing of it. I don't think he had anything to do with like the writing in the comics.
Okay.
This is like the first comic that I know that he has done. I've never seen his name like actually tied to writing, so it was very interesting.
Yeah, and they're separate stories in this that get interwoven, and he's credited on like specific stories.
Right. Well, it's not really separate stories. Okay, so there's two stories that are running concurrently in each issue. And at first I was a little thrown off, and then by the second issue I was like, this is fantastic. This paces really well. Like basically you get 12 pages of each story each issue. And they eventually run into each other by issue 5 or 6 or whatever it is. But man, it was like really well paced. I gotta say, for Stephen King not really being a comic book writer, didn't really feel like he didn't know how to write for the medium or anything, which you get sometimes if you have like authors write or movie people write.
I can imagine them getting really like wordy.
Really wordy. They don't understand that you got to fit the words in the word bubbles, So like, or like they do get that, but then they get really wordy still, and you get like Kevin Smith comics or whatever, where there's just like a text page, and then like you see Daredevil's eyeball on the side or whatever. Oh, Daredevil said that. Okay, but like it's not that bad, but still, like he's a wordy motherfucker, and Stephen King wrote really well for this, I thought. And then the art is by Raphael Albuquerque, who or I don't know how you say it, but art was fantastic in this.
Oh yeah, I love the art in this.
I really didn't. Nothing was phoned in. I felt like this was a really, really good, strong, like out of the gate book. And like I said, I'm surprised I didn't read this when it came out. The only thing I could think is I was like, I'm not a big vampire guy. Like, which is pretty much true. Like, I like other kind of monsters more than vampires, so maybe that's why. Also, this came out in 2013 when I wasn't really buying every week, so I think it just kind of slipped under the radar. But gotta say, this was like a really, really good book, and I would highly recommend this for anybody who likes horror or westerns even too, or kind of like historical fiction and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's very, very good.
Yeah, because it's cool because it felt, even though like there's that horror element to it, it felt really grounded. Like right away you felt the time settings that they put in and you were like, oh, okay, like I can kind of see this like going on in the background of some town or something.
Yeah.
Like it was really good.
Yeah, and everything made sense, and I don't know, it was just really well done, which makes sense because, Stephen King's helped writing it. Scott Snyder is a good writer. I think at this time he was also writing like Batman and shit too. So that's pretty crazy that he was writing like the Batman run that like with the Court of Owls and all that stuff. I don't know if you've read the New 52 run. Is it the New 52? Or is it, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. One of the one that was in the mid 210s. Okay, I don't know what that was called. But yeah, I think it's the new 52. I think that's what it was called.
There's a lot of Batman stories.
Yeah, there's a lot. So, but he wrote a really good run that everybody is like, oh yeah, this is fantastic. And so while he was doing that, he was also writing this stuff, apparently. So, I haven't read too much of his stuff. I read a little bit of that Batman run. I read The Wake last week as part of my, what I'm reading this month.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't really think of a Scott Snyder book I've read. So this was like the third book I've read from him, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And his stuff was really good, and Stephen King's was really good, and you could tell they were different writers, but they both wrote really well. So let's stop jibber-jabbing about this, about the creators. Let's get into the book. So right away, it starts off on the storyline that's in the 20s. So we get to meet this girl, and the first story arc is called like the Big Break, because like she's a Hollywood starlet in the 20s, and it takes place in like 1925, right outside of Los Angeles area. So makes sense. And right away, like this book catches you because like it just starts off in the dark, and you're like, what's going on? There's like an old timey car, and then like this guy is driving in the middle of the desert, and then you see this girl's body that's in the back of this car, and then this guy just takes her out after he stops the car and throws her in a pit of more bodies.
Yeah, you see how, that there's just like piles of bodies in this pit.
Yeah,
and then you also see real quick as he's getting ready to go, like that she's like but almost just barely breathing out, like I'm not dead.
Yeah, she's like I'm alive.
Yeah,
and she's whispering it or whatever. And then we cut to 3 days ago, and we see, she's working like in as an extra in some of these movies. These I guess these are silent movies at this moment because they talk about like, oh, the talkies are coming out, and they're gonna put all of us out of work or whatever. So they're like extras in silent movies, and this reminded me kind of like The Rocketeer, like the movie she's in where it's like there's like a swordsman and he's like fighting on steps or whatever. Just like very much of these, like this one takes place in like Rome or something, obviously, but it still had the same like we're gonna sword fight, on steps, and I'm gonna be the hero or whatever. And so these two girls, one's named Pearl and one's named Hattie, and they're roommates, and they live in LA, and they're trying to make it. The story as old as time.
Yeah,
still a story nowadays, right? And these two girls, they're extras, and they're not really getting that far in the industry, right? But they're trying, and specifically Pearl is really trying. She's working multiple jobs,
3 jobs.
Trying to pay rent. She works as like a bus. Is it a bus girl, or she's like working just like at a nightclub or something? I don't know what she does there.
I guess
like a hostess maybe or something. I don't know what she is.
Something like that.
They just show her like, hey, how's it going, guys, or whatever, but like nothing. It shows her handing out cigarettes and cigars. I don't know if she's like a vendor or something there, or if that's just what the hostesses did back then.
You've probably seen in old timey movies that be like cigarettes, just like the.
Sure.
You never seen that?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think it would. It's the equivalent of like
Diet Coke,
kind of like a server kind of thing. It's just like
d'oeuvre.
Either the club like offers
Cancer
it, or
sticks?
there's a small fee for.
Would you like some cancer?
Well, actually, back then it's like, did it cure cancer?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Marlboros for your lungs to breathe better.
Breathe like a man.
Yeah.
With Marlboro.
But yeah, so this girl Pearl, she works there, and she works another place too. I think a diner or whatever as well. And she's just working real hard to try to make ends meet in LA. While she's there, the first night we see the first night that we see her, she leaves the club to then walk to her diner job. So she literally like gets off work from the studio, maybe has like a couple hours to sleep or whatever before the nightclub opens. Then the nightclub opens, and they're open all night. And then when she leaves that job at like 4 a.m., she walks to the diner, which is then open.
Yeah, for breakfast.
Yeah. And then I assume she leaves around 9 or 10 or whatever, and then goes to the studio again or whatever. So like she's working all night.
Yeah.
Working 17 hours a day. So she meets another guy. What was his name again? Henry. And he's like a musician in town or whatever. He comes back later, but they just kind of pepper him in at the beginning.
Yeah, they kind of throw like he's like oh she's like he's like a street vagrant vagabond. Like what are you just some kind of like musician guy just trying to make it big here too. Like I don't know if I have time for this because he's like trying to woo her obviously a little, but he's not. But it was cool. He's not like
hey toots.
Yeah, but he didn't seem like overtly like he was like okay, well maybe we'll go on that date later.
I will say like the guys in this seem specifically not as creepy as I think they would be back in the day. You know? But they're still written well. It's just like he's like a nice guy for like really nice for the time, I would say. Whereas normally a guy would be like, hey sugar, you want to give me some of that? You know, whatever. like and that was like he's flirting with me or whatever. Like, you know, like now he's like, hi, of course I don't want to like distract you from your job or anything.
Oh yes, no, I insist.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's super like chivalrous or whatever. And I mean, maybe men were like that back then, but I in my head they're not. So
definitely not like portrayed in,
and especially not like a nightclub musician. I've known a lot of musicians that play at nightclubs, and none of them speak to women like that. So, Then we get like this is like the movie that they're making. Cut to the next day. I guess the next day, she hasn't slept. I'm assuming.
Yeah, but she does get to be in a scene with the big leading man, Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah. And Hamilton is the, I don't know, Clark Gable or something.
Yeah, that's what he kind of came off with like Clark Gable or
one of those. He's the Neville Sinclair of this film. If you have seen The Rocketeer, he's the main star, and he does the movie theater thing or the movie star thing where he's in a scene with her because they're like, hey, we need someone to talk to him in this scene, and then. She's like, they're like, you, and they just point to Pearl, and she's like, oh, okay, and she does that scene, and then he's like, hey, why don't you come by later? I'm gonna have a special party in the Hollywood Hills or whatever, and at this time there was like 4 houses in the Hollywood Hills or whatever, and he hands her like a piece of paper that's like got the address or whatever, and says what time to meet. Now Oh yeah,
I was just saying, and now we know that yes, there were only 4 houses, and all of them were having wild, crazy sex parties.
Yes, we know that for sure.
We know that going into this as a reader now too. So it's like, whoa.
I mean,
what did she get into?
Eyes Wide Shut could really take place in any generation in Hollywood. They just pick that certain time. But yeah, like all of these, these people are. I mean, I love this book because it really feels like they're like, yeah, we know this is a direct metaphor for Hollywood, but they're all blood-sucking fucking assholes. Like, so, But another guy we get peppered in because she comes home from her, one of her jobs, I guess, and she sees this other guy, and I can't remember what he says his name is here, but when she meets him, I don't even know if he says his name, but there's just this guy like sitting in front of the apartments that they live in, like at the pool, and he looks like just a handyman or something, like the guy that cuts grass or something. But it's like nighttime, so it's like, why are you here? and he's just there, and he talks to them, and that's about it. Like they just pepper him in. I'm assuming. Yeah, he's gonna come back later.
No, the only thing he's like, I wouldn't go to that party. And they're like, what would you know, you miscreant who's just sitting out here at night at the pool? Why don't you go? Do you even live here? Like, go back to your own place.
Get out of here, you handyman or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go to the party, and she meets Mr. Hamilton, and he's like, oh yeah, why don't you come with me to the back room and let me introduce you to the producer. And then Harvey Weinstein comes in. So it's very, very, much in that lane. And it's almost like, I mean, obviously.
Well, and she knows the producer too, because she's like, oh, because his name is Mr. Block.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, she's like, really? Like, yeah, I'd love to meet because I've seen all of his films or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, he would love to meet you.
Yeah.
And we're like, wow, this is creepy. Is he going to jerk off into a plant like someone else we know? And then,
we don't know what,
we don't know what, but I mean, we're assuming.
We're assuming something.
Bad stuff's going to happen. So Hamilton knocks on the door, lets her in, and then like fucking locks the door behind him. And then she's like, wait, what? And then as she walks in, they're like, we were just talking about you and how delicious. You were like your acting was or whatever, and then he turns around. And there's a bunch of other men in the room, and they all have fucking fangs. So they're like this group of vampires that run Hollywood. I
did like that. Like she's kind of talking for a second, like you can see she gets timid, but because it's creepy.
She's trying to play it off like, I'm not trying. I'm trying to put it on a good face. I'm gonna assume this is like not what I think it is, but it totally is what I think it is. Like, she's trying to play it off, but
Block says a couple of things, then he's like, actually, I really don't care about anything you have to say.
Yeah,
and they attack her.
Yeah, and so they attack her. It's pretty awesome. The art in this section is fucking cool, where he's just like, they jump at her and like they're all blacked out, but you can see their fangs white and their eyes are white. It's pretty cool looking. So I don't know. The art was really good in this book.
All the action stuff in this is particularly, it has very cool and unique design to it.
Yes, and then right there we leave it hanging. We cut to 1880.
1880,
and this story is called Bad Blood, and this is the one written by Stephen King.
Hidewinder, Colorado.
Yeah. So we get this story written by it's like it's weird because this story is kind of like it's in a book. It's kind of being narrated by a guy who was in this at this time period in 1880. He was young, and then as we move through the stories, he's like older in each section. Or
yeah, and he's like telling the story to other people.
Yeah, so like now it's like old man. This guy is.
I assume it's Stephen King writing himself into the thing.
He's
like
not that old.
No. I just mean like because Stephen King will have a party's like. Oh, I'm the old whatever man. And
yeah, that probably. But so this dude's name is Will Bunting, right? And he was like, and I was there, and then we like go into the story. And so he's old at the beginning of this, like as he's narrating, like there's a picture of him old, so we know that. And then they cut to him in 1880 and he's like young. So we know, all right, well, at least he lives through this. So they spoil that at least. So, and then we see there's like a something going on. There's like trains in a town, and we see there's a Pinkerton on it. His name's James Brooke. Pinkertons, for all you don't know, much like my friend John here, who did not know what a Pinkerton was. They are basically like the FBI before the FBI.
It rang a bell, but it's been so long since I watched or read anything like Wild West. So
yeah, they were just like the government agency of the time. And I don't know if they were like actually government agents or if they were like a privatized force and then got like paid for by the government eventually or something. But basically they're the FBI or some shit. So or like special forces or something like domestic special forces. So like maybe like the marshals or something like that. But they had marshals then too. So I don't know. There's some other kind of arresting agency. And I think they were known for like investigation. Like they could find you anywhere because they were really good at like tracking shit down and like finding clues about where you've been. Like we talked about them in the H.H. Holmes episode.
You're right. That is wow. You're right.
A little far back in the episode 3, I think it is.
Yeah.
Of our podcast, but we did an H.H. Holmes episode where he gets tracked down by Pinkertons because they're literally like, what? Oh, I found a piece of paper with like an inscription on it that has one letter, and I figured it out with whatever, and I found out exactly what fucking address he was at. You're like, how do they do that? Like, this is before the internet or any of that shit. No one's leaving stuff around, and so yeah. They were really good at their job. So anyway, they're on this train, and then there's like a banker dude, and his name is Percy.
Old Man Percy.
I think he's got a last name, but I don't remember what his last name is. But basically, he's obviously a vampire because he's like, it's so hot out here, and he's got like an umbrella.
Yeah,
he's like, my skin cream. I need more skin cream.
More skin cream. My skin is burning up.
Yeah, so he's like, he's basically using, lotion and, suntan lotion to stay not burning in the daylight while he's doing, this speech or whatever. And basically what we find out is that they have caught a criminal, a bank robber, the bank robber who robs Percy's banks, basically. And his name is Skinner Sweet. And he's like, the Billy the Kid or whatever of this story. The infamous man. And so we find out like they've captured him. They're going to like bring him to justice or whatever. They got him on the train as well. I liked this. Like there's a back and forth. Skinner's got some boys waiting to like hijack the train and free him, but they don't. The Pinkerton doesn't know that. And the Pinkerton's name is. Did I say his name?
No, you did not. It's James Brooke.
James Brooks. Or Brooke?
I think it's just Brooke.
Oh, Brooke. Okay. So, like, he's like a super main character in this. He's got a really cool story arc, I thought. But anyway, so he's like the main Pinkerton dude, and he's got a sidekick named Felix that's his buddy. I will say there is a little bit of or a lot of racism in this book towards his buddy Felix, because his buddy Felix is Hispanic, and they don't take kindly to Hispanics in this book. So if you're at all squeamish about some mean words that are said about Hispanic people, be just what would we call that? Trigger warning.
Trigger warning. Yeah.
Trigger warning for that. So yeah.
There's some like time period racism specifically in this.
Yeah. They specifically say like because Felix is like, I'm going to be like the first Hispanic sheriff, and they're like, it'll be a day in hell when the people of, where are they at, Texas or something?
No, Colorado.
Colorado elect a Hispanic mayor or whatever, and
they don't say Hispanic
or sheriff. Yeah, they don't say Hispanic. I should say that. Yeah. So much other colorful words that they use.
Yes.
So but they write it like it's really the time period. So Stephen King's going to do that because he's an actual writer. So Anyway. So Skinner Sweet's got his gang, his posse, waiting to free him, and we see more and more that like obviously this fucking guy Percy is like a vampire, and like the people that are on the train with him, some of them are also either like with him and know that he's a vampire, but for the most part, everybody there that's Pinkertons. We got Will, who's telling and writing the story, and he's all young in this. And then I think he was just there like as a journalist or some shit. I don't remember why he was there other than maybe just to tag along and write a book about James Brooks, or Brooke. But so he's there and he's like, oh, fine. Like he's going to tell the story of how they caught Skinner Sweet. And then Skinner's talking to Brooks and he's like, you think you're getting out of this? You ain't getting out of shit or whatever. And he's like, we'll see about that, Pinkerton. And then then of course, his boys, do something to the train. Stuff happens. Shootout happens. He's able to escape because I guess he's got like some kind of metal thing. And he's called Skinner Sweet because he likes sweets.
I didn't think it was metal. I thought that he just whittled down a old candy cane in his mouth and made it a pick. It's not a candy
cane though. It looks like a pixie stick to me.
It looked like a candy cane. It's red and white striped.
It's red and white striped, but I don't know. It doesn't look. It's all like limpy and shit. Like it looks like it's like a stick of hay or something. But I thought it was a pixie stick.
Oh.
So I'm like, there must be a piece of metal or something in there.
Maybe that would make more sense.
How the fuck is a candy cane that would break a lock?
Because back then they were really harder.
Yeah, their locks were made of steel. Iron, all right?
It's a comic.
Okay, yeah, okay, whatever.
He's breaking it with...
Anyway, he's got something hidden in his pixie stick, we'll call it, all right?
Okay.
And he's just like, hey, can you reach up there, lawman, and give me my sweets? I need my sweets. He must be like diabetic or something. So he keeps asking for his sweets. And finally the lawman gives it to him. I think it's Felix gives it to him because James will not. And it turns out there is a pick inside of it. Yeah, he pulls out a metal pick out of it.
Yeah, but it's in the end of the candy. Yes. So I thought that's why I thought he
maybe I'll say this. Maybe he made the candy himself and put a lock pick in there.
Maybe.
A piece of metal. I don't know. But anyway, he picks the lock. He frees himself. And then he's able to get out and start shooting people while the train is crashing from his buddies. He gets out and, obviously it's very apparent that, after he kills a bunch of people, the only people left is Will. And then there's James, Brooks, and then there's Felix, and then there's the vampire guys, and they fucking bite him because he's I did
think that was cool because they think because his guys, one thing that the buddies say are like we're not gonna leave any witnesses when we save Skinner. So they're rescuing him and they're gonna get away, and like James is like knocked out, and I think Will is hiding.
Yeah,
and
Felix is knocked out too, right?
Yeah, Felix is knocked out. And and they're getting ready to go, and like old man Percy kind of like steps out of the brush, and they're like, "Oh, old man Percy survived, huh?" And they're like, "Well, not for long." And they shoot him a couple times, and he doesn't die.
He don't die. So
and that pisses Percy off, obviously.
Yeah, and so he's and it's I think it's kind of like he also needs to feed now so he can heal or whatever.
Yeah,
so, but basically, he attacks Skinner and bites him. Cuts his throat too. I don't remember if he like actually bites him or if he just cuts his throat. I guess he cuts his throat with his teeth, and so like he doesn't really like suck on him though. But blood of him gets in to Skinner's eyes and cut.
Yeah.
So it's like we find out there's some lore in this where it's kind of lore that's been established in like Anne Rice books and stuff. But
yeah,
you have to get not only bitten but you have to
blood
of
from
a vampire.
Yeah.
And it turns out,
and Will does see all of this because he, like I said, he's kind of hidden away from it, and he sees all this happen. He's like, "What?" So
Will literally, he's hiding, and he's like, "What the fuck? I got to put this in my book." Like, so he writes, and he's like, got all this shit, down in his head. But he actually sees, the vampire freak the fuck out. At the time, I think it's like either it's super smoky or it's getting dark because the vampire is like more out and not really hidden too much.
Not needing a sunscreen.
Yeah, and so the guys run, but Skinner's just sitting there dead. They're like, "Oh, Skinner's dead," or whatever, And so his body's there, but he's not. He like passes out, and that's about it. So, and then that's the end of that issue. So, and the interesting thing, we find this out later, but like I just want to hit on it now. So apparently, those motherfuckers, those train banker guys, like Percy and his buddies, they are like European vampires.
Yeah, old school European vampires
that have come to America, and they are.
That was and that
also, hey, bankers, vampires. Just saying.
Sounds
Hollywood.
Vampires makes sense.
Yeah,
but you're getting. I'm just jumping in. Is that was one of my favorite things about this. When they're talking later, they're like, "Yeah, we're from kind of wherever, but like we've been here in America before it was even America. Like we've been here a long time before this was even a nation."
Yeah,
and that was a really cool. Like, oh wow, so like they've been seeding themselves into how basically to be the most powerful people over here.
Yeah, they're the Illuminati. So, they're taking over stuff.
They're all vampires.
And yes, they're not lizard people. They're vampires. And the only thing that doesn't jive with that theory or what they say of them being here for a long time is Skinner's the first American vampire. Like they've never turned anyone else.
I guess they've been real careful.
Apparently. Well, in this, they turned two people. so besides Skinner, one other person becomes a vampire, and they're not that careful. I'll just say that.
Well, so it sounds like, it's because Skinner's in like 1880 or whatever. Yeah. And like, because they mentioned later, because Skinner and then another person that we'll mention that becomes a vampire, it also, like, they also mention like, they're special because we'll find out there's some unique things about these American vampires, and they're like, they say too, like, oh, like we've been through like some of you to try like figure out like why you guys are different. So it seems like there were some other ones too.
They don't know though. They've been waiting to find like when they. Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
We
don't want to jump too far ahead, but anyway. So the second issue starts. We're back in 1920s. We pick up right where we left off, where there's a girl, and now we know her name is Pearl. She's walking through the desert by herself. We actually saw in the morning her friend came in. It's her friend Hattie.
Hattie, yeah.
Is it Henry too, or is that another guy? There's some other guy with Hattie, and they're like, "Where's Pearl? She didn't sleep here last night. That's super fucking weird." And that would be weird in the 20s as well. So they're like, "Where's she at?" And so turns out she's in the desert walking. She's all fucking cut up and looks fucking beat to shit. She's half naked, and they're like they end up driving in the into the middle of the desert. I guess where this party was, into the middle of the desert. I don't know. Like on the one road that goes to this guy's house, they took it, and they're like, "See, you're on the way." So they see her, and they're like, "Oh my god, we got to get her," And so they take her back, and they bring her to the hospital. Then while she's like recovering in the room, we see Skinner Sweet comes to visit her, and basically tells her like what she is like, or does he turn her?
I think because he's like, it would be a shame to let you and I think he like basically drop some of his blood in her.
I thought she was already turned, but yeah, I guess that makes sense because they didn't give her their blood, or anything when they drained her.
No, they just drained her.
Drain her enough to fully kill her, and she was just half, or she's like barely alive and was able to walk out of the pit.
Yeah,
and then yes, okay, that makes sense. Skinner is like, here you go. It'd be a shame to.
Yeah, so he like. I don't know if he kisses her eye or something. It looks a little weird.
Yeah, that was some of the art was sometimes like they just like inferred. I guess he bites it shows him. He bites his lip, and then he opens her eyeball, and then he kisses her eye.
Yeah,
and like I guess lets the bitten lip drip into her eye.
And I guess because that kind of seemed like that similarly happened to him, because it looked like it went to in his face.
Yeah, I know.
And on his cut up.
Well, they specifically show his eye, so almost, and like the blood flying.
Yeah.
Towards it, so apparently he just knows eyes do it for sure. So
I like that she has a fever dream about like her childhood, and then like I guess it's her dad that turns it around,
and he's like,
he's like all hissing at her.
Yeah,
and then she wakes up. And she's like in the morgue.
She's in a morgue, but like a 20s morgue.
So yeah, the hospital.
Like a hot room where there's a bunch of stinky dead bodies that are rotting and out in the open. And
it's not a big ice box. They didn't have big ice in there. I'm just kidding.
They had yeah, sure.
I'm just
They had an ammonia compressor, and it was a original refrigerator. So anyway, yeah, she wakes up and she's like in the morgue. Then she like comes home. And she like, she gets a shirt or whatever. She comes home. She's like, what the fuck? And when she gets in her room, Skinner's there. And he's like, hey, just letting you know, this is what happened. You're a vampire now, just like me. They showed some of the lore in this where like, he's like, check this out. Look in the mirror. And basically, instead of being invisible like normal vampires are, they are like, it looks like a funhouse mirror when they walk in front of any mirror. It's all wobbly and
yeah, that was cool.
Weirded out. So. And this is like, apparently, I like this. They just keep the old vampire lore and say, that's European vampires. We're different. We're Americans.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. American vampires.
American vampires.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what he's telling her. Like, this is what it is. You got teeth now. You're going to be hungry, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, he talks about, he's basically like, the American vampires are like a more evolved vampire or whatever. And that's why like they can, so basically, they can be out more in the daylight and skin's not getting burned.
Yeah, he leaves her like a note, and it says them, and it says likes, blood, moonlight, clothes. They use a word I can't say on the podcast, but they say basically flamboyant clothes, we'll say. And then they dislike sunlight, wood, and then you, basically. And then it says us. It says, he says, we don't want to wear, I don't want to ruin the surprise. So like, I'm not going to tell you everything, basically. Yeah. So we're going to find out as the reader as well with her.
Yeah.
What her powers are and stuff.
She can go out in the sun. She may not be like, I guess it's seemingly as strong as she would be.
It didn't say that in the sun. It just said we find out later they have like a time, kind of like a werewolf. Like when the moon is full, for those 3 days, they're like susceptible to being killed. Whereas every other vampire, it's like, oh, it's sunlight or daytime is when they're like sleeping or whatever. Yeah. So it seems like they only need like to really recover in those 3 days. They don't have to sleep or, do anything else the rest of the month or whatever. So that's kind of how they establish the new lore. And then he says, oh, and I left something for you in the closet, like a little treat or whatever. And then she opens the closet and it's Mr. Hamilton, the star, the Neville Sinclair guy. He's in there and he's like, "Please help me, miss." And then he's like, "I'm an actor." And then like,
yeah, he doesn't even remember her.
He doesn't even remember her. Like after having done a scene with her and then feeding her to them. And then he's like, "Let me use your phone." And then as he's doing that, she like has a flashback of the men, and she says like, "You fed me to them." And then she just fucking vamps out, and we get to see what she looks like as a vampire, and it's pretty fucking horrific.
Yeah.
She gets like Lady Deathstrike
claw
hands, and then like she gets like super emaciated and like gaunt, and then like her face has like more angle bones in it, and then her eyes get yellow, and then her fangs get gigantic.
Yeah, her mouth kind of open. It made me think of like a snake kind of too a little bit.
Yeah, very snake-like. And then she just fucking rips him apart and like eats him. That's her first meal is this dude. And then she like leaves him back at his dressing room, like on his little mirror or whatever area, like his dressing table, all emaciated and blood gone and torn apart and everything. So it's pretty awesome. But and then right there, that's what we cut back to the West, the Wild West. And like I said, this is an interesting way that they did this. I really enjoyed this pacing. It made me wanting more every time they cut away. I was like, oh. And it wasn't just for the one story. It was like every time they cut away from the Western, back to the other one, I'm like, oh,
wait a minute.
I want more of the Western. So they did a good job pacing it. I felt like I got 2 full stories, but it was only 12 pages each. So they did a really good job in this, I thought. But yeah, so we'll kind of speed along a bit. But basically, we find out that Skinner was buried in this town, and the banker, in all his wisdom, is like, I'm just going to flood the town. And then his European buddies are like, what if he rises or whatever? And they're like, yeah, he's fine. He's trapped under there.
Yeah, he'll
like
be
say,
under 60 feet of water.
Yeah, they say like underwater he like can't get out. So like I don't know if it's just the pressure of the water or something about water specifically, but they made it seem like he just can't do it. And so all his banker buddies are there, and they're like the Illuminati vampires. And then James Brooks, the Pinkerton, and his partner Felix, they're like, well, we're done here. Let's go our separate ways or whatever. Will's gonna, write his books and whatnot. But they're like, well, it's over now. Like we caught him and he's dead now. And so they flood the town, and it turns out that while he's buried, he I guess like rats and stuff had gotten in there. So that's what he's been feeding on while he's been buried under the ground. I guess he doesn't have enough strength to really break out of the box yet and like break through the ground. And this is like right before they flood the town. So when they flood the town, there's nothing else that he's able to get out. So he's just starving underwater. And I thought that was a cool concept. It kind of reminded me of Angel. I don't know if you've watched Angel.
Yeah,
in the third season, spoilers for anybody who's watching Angel right now, they lock him in the ocean. And like he's stuck down there, and it's just like super fucking like he's just famished and all. Like he's withering away. But he can't die, so it's kind of like super fucked up or whatever. So it's kind of interesting. I thought that was cool, but I was like, oh, it's kind of like that. It doesn't feel like it. Like it's not like they stole the idea or something, but like it's a similar idea. We'll say that. So, but anyway, they bury the city underwater, like make it a lake, and then they cut to 1909. And in 1909, they're like, hey, wasn't Skinner Sweet buried here? We should like find some relics of him. And they got scuba diving suits now and stuff. So they got one of those old timey like giant ones where you have the big helmet, like kind of like what's that game? Bioshock. Yeah, like it looked like those divers or whatever. And so they're pumping air to this guy, and he finds the Skinner Sweets coffin, and Skinner is like totally emaciated, totally starving, and he's like, hello, motherfucker, got any candy? Like he's ready to eat. Like he's probably heard this guy digging around, and he was like, I'm gonna break out of this fucking box. And so he kills that diver. He kills the person on the boat. He comes out and he's just like, I'm going to kill everybody in this fucking town and drink them. And that's like that whole issue, or the rest of that. Then we cut back, the next issue starts, we see Pearl is alive again. She's looking normal now. And everybody's like, what the fuck? You're alive?
Yeah, we saw you die.
We thought you were dead. Like her roommate Hattie's like, what the fuck? And then, so she's basically trying to get revenge on these guys, right? So she goes to one of the party, or knows how to get to one of the parties, but she's like, oh, I see the car where the guy is, where the guys have like the limo. I guess it's the limo or whatever that they take the women to the place, and when they drive around there, the bankers or the Hollywood guys, and she grabs a motorcycle, rides up next to them, starts kind of looking flirtily at the driver, and then he's like, "Are you the guy? Are you this guy?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." And she's like, "I hate your fucking movies." And then she like jumps on and just starts like killing everybody in the car. She just kills everybody. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, she rips off the guy's face. I thought that was really cool. Like you literally see like the outline of his face like come off in her like claw-like hands.
Yeah, and then it turns out like basically the people that were driving in the car were like other Hollywood stars that are actual European vampires. And so it's daytime, and she's like, hey, you guys get to fucking burn because it's daytime, and it starts burning their skin, and then she like actually lights it on fire and blows them up. It's pretty awesome. And then so that's that she, and then they also show like, okay, we know that she can like fight these guys, and they're not really a threat. So like,
yeah, especially during the daytimes.
Yeah, during the day they can't do shit.
Yeah,
but like even as at night, like one of them is still alive and she's fighting her, and it's very apparent like, okay, like she is way stronger than these guys are. Like I don't know if it's like they're watered down,
it's the American
fed as much or whatever. Yeah, I guess just American stronger. Makes sense to me.
I did like how she kills the vampire she's fighting, because she's like, they're out in the desert, so she's like, hey, you know, like cactus thorns are basically wood because they're so dried out.
Yeah,
or
little thing I didn't know, but they give like a Bill Nye Science Guy effect.
Yeah,
and then she stabs her into the cactus.
Yeah, so it's like a bunch of stakes through her. That was,
and it was like cool. A cactus with a giant fucking spikes on it. So, and then Pearl goes to visit Henry, who's like that musician guy.
Yeah,
and he's like, I thought you were fucking.
So that was him. That was him. That was with Hattie.
Okay.
Because he's like, I thought you were dead.
Yeah. So he is like, oh, I thought you were dead. I didn't recognize him because he's got a hat on when he first meets her. He looks so much cooler with the hat on. I gotta say, he's got like a little newsboy cap, and he just looks better, I think. And he had like the first time she met him, he had a
guitar on his back and an overcoat. Shit. Yeah.
So I didn't recognize him as a.
And the rest of the time we see him, he's got suspenders on.
Yeah.
And like a wife.
A what job?
Undershirt.
A man beater, we'll call it.
Yes.
Anyway, she's like still in love with him, but now we find out like kind of some more lore about her.
She's not quite in love with him because he's more in love with her.
You can tell. They're both moony for each other, but she's like weirded out by everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, especially because
she's not really like
powers.
trying to make anything happen, but he's like, oh, I'm here with you.
He's also a gentleman about it all.
Yeah, of course he is. He would never take advantage of.
She's like, can I crash here for a couple days? He's like, yeah, sure. You can have my bed, and I will just sleep on the floor over here. Like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'm a perfect gentleman.
And then also we find out, okay, this must be a full moon or it says no moon, I guess. So when there's no moon, not a full moon, my bad. So it's like the opposite of a werewolf. When there's no moon, she has no power. Or like it's like weak, time to sleep or whatever. Basically, it's time for her to recover. So she does that, and then while like I guess it's 3 nights of the no moon. So the next night she gets a call on the phone, and there's a vampire, and he's like, "Hey Pearl, like we know what you did. You killed some buddies of ours.
Yeah, and we've got your friend Hattie.
Yeah, we got her, and you better come save her." So they head right, or actually it's just Pearl. Pearl steals his car. And it's like, I'm going to go fucking save these guys. This is my friend.
I appreciate your help, but believe me, I'm the only one that can do this.
Yeah, I don't need your help. And then we cut to 1909 again. So we cut to the Wild West storyline by Stephen King. Now it's 1909, and we see, or actually, I think this is 1925 still right now, because we see there's the old man William Bunting is talking about his book. So it turns out this whole Western story was him telling this story at like a book signing or like a book reading, pressing or whatever release party of his new book that's got the full story. I think it was like an addendum to the book that he had already written. Like he finally put like the end chapters in where he's putting all the stuff that he hid. So he had hid the vampire stuff.
The vampire stuff, yeah.
He left all the, Wild West stuff, but he was always scared to tell everybody, oh, vampires are real, and I saw this for real, and this and that. And so then there's like historians in the audience who are like, you're a crackpot or whatever. But anyway, then it cuts to 1909. So he's like, back to my story. Shut up, dumb fuck. And like, then we see Swisher Sweets. Skinner Sweets is like he wakes up. He's like, what the fuck's going on? Because like he went into the ground in 1880 or whatever. And he came up, and it's like there's telephones and cars and fucking other weird shit. And so it's all technological. He just goes through this town kind of killing everybody, drinking their blood, trying to find...
He robs a candy store.
Yeah, robs a candy store. He's got to have his
candies.
And basically, he...
I was just saying, I like the police try to arrest him.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you come with us. And he's like, nah, I don't think so. And they're like, oh, a drunkard and got a smart mouth on you. And he just like rips off one of their arms.
Yes. Yeah. He just tears through them.
Yeah.
And so he goes through this town, and he's going to get revenge on the Illuminati vampires, the bankers that, turned him into a vampire. And then also he wants revenge on James Brooks. And so Brooks. And so I can't believe I said that wrong. Anyway, James Brooks. And then so in the meantime, he kills the sheriff. Is it the sheriff or the mayor? I guess he kills the mayor. And the mayor is actually Felix's dad. So it's Felix, the Pinkerton's sidekick, kills his dad, who was the mayor of this town. So it turns out Hispanic guy can be the mayor. All right, so we found that out, and so yeah, it's like we said, it's been 30 years, so he's an old man. He like is taunting Brooks. He like sends him a message by telegram and is like, "Hey, motherfucker, stop. If you want to fight me, I got something Felix wants. Stop. You can go fuck yourself. I'm gonna kill you. Stop. Love, Skinner.
Love Skinner.
And so." Just based on that, James is like, okay, we got to go down. We got to take him on. So they go down there, and we see now what's happened is we got James and Felix are still friends. Felix has been married, and his wife died, and he had a child in the meantime. And his child is now like, what, 19 or something like that, 20?
Yeah, 1920.
So like, she is James is the godfather of Felix's daughter. And this comes back.
Yes, that is the reason we mentioned that.
We're mentioning this because it comes back. And so not only are James going there, but we also get the bankers are going to meet him as well. So James...
But the one thing we should gotta say too is that Percy is like, if they don't take care of him, maybe we can work something out with Skinner, because I mean, Kate,
we're all buddies.
Yeah, we're all
one people.
Yeah, he's a vampire too. Like in vampires, they negotiate sometimes.
And we should say they treat American vampires like they're mongrel bloods or something, like they're less than blood.
Very much so, yeah.
And the Europeans are the pure bloods or whatever. So it's kind of like Twilight-ish. I'm just gonna mix all these vampires.
All vampire lore all together.
And Skinner is not sparkly, so he does not have diamond skin. But anyway, so Skinner has got a good idea. He goes to where it's weird because he's got his buddies who heard that he woke up, and they're the ones that like freed him from the train originally. But they were like, "Oh shit!" Like he's gonna go back to the mine where we buried the treasure. But when he died, they unburied the treasure that they had stolen from the banks and took it all for themselves. So it was like he did. And then now he's going back there, and they're like, "Oh, what do you think he's gonna say when they see it's empty?" And then like Skinner sees it's empty. He's like, "Those motherfuckers." And so, and then, but he's like, "Oh, this will be a good place to like hold up or whatever." So he's got the Pinkertons on the way. He's got the vampires on the way, and his buddies are waiting to see what's gonna happen. So all this is happening, and then we cut to the 20s again, and we get Pearl's story. So we start off with a nice little story about how Pearl met Hattie and how they became friends and how they were like two lost girls in LA and they met each other and they became best buds. And they show this because we find out as she goes to get Hattie from these vampires that are like have kidnapped her or whatever, she's like, let her go, and she says like, basically, we'll talk or whatever, and I won't like, I won't kill you all right now, basically. And then we find out that Hattie is in fact a betrayer.
They're like,
she will do anything apparently to
get a role in
a movie.
to get ahead in life and get a role in a movie.
Literally, just like everyone in Hollywood, Hattie will stab you in the back, which she does.
Literally.
she stabs Pearl in the back as Pearl's like trying to save her, and it was funny because the vampire's like, you had a great audition, Hattie, and then Pearl's like, wait, what? And then like stab in the back, and then like you fucking bitch, like, and then so Pearl's very, very hurt that Hattie did that, and then she proceeds to get very pissed off and start trying to fight them, but it's still the moonlight. It's still not a thing right now, so she's pretty weak, and they know that. They know enough about their kind, but they don't know everything about their kind. We find out that like the European vampires haven't really had time or known enough of them to study what their weaknesses are and stuff, and they're like, well, our weaknesses, but we don't know yours, but they do know that the moon has some effect on them, so they're vulnerable at least. So as they kind of like start beating the fuck out of her, and they're gonna run her over and like kill her, a car pulls up. And it's Henry. Yeah. And he saves her.
I guess he had another car. Yeah, she gets injured, and you can see like she's losing blood or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did. This is one of my favorite panels actually. So they're like Henry picks her up real fast, and he's going to speed off, and one of the vampires jumps on top of the thing, and to make sure you understand it's the European vampire, he's like, "Bonjour,
buongiorno." Yeah. So because of that, because she's losing blood and she's weak and everything. She's like, I need blood, and he's like, well, drink from me, Pearl. We get a very very hot scene.
It's a very True Blood.
Very True Blood or Buffy-ish. Yeah. There was a Buffy scene this.
It's okay, just feed on me. It's all right. Yeah. I'll do it for you.
Yeah, it's the reverse of Buffy though, because she feeds on him. So she feeds on him, and then as she feeds on him, she's like, you know what? Let's fuck too. So they make some love. She's basically like, well, you help me out, so I'm going to give you a quickie or whatever. So I'm going to help you out. And so, she's like, let me take care of you. And then they cut to him being shirtless and with his suspenders still, which I love. He's like the perfect guy there. And so she's like, then they have like a thing going on. And it turns out she thinks he's just some like shitty pussy musician from LA who's trying to make it, but you don't have the stomach for this fight. And he's like, bullshit. And he pulls out his fucking dog tags, which I don't even know if they had dog tags in the 1920s, but he pulls out dog tags and he's like, I'm a goddamn U.S. Marine. And so it turns out he's got a little bit of fighting. Apparently he doesn't say what he fought in, but we're assuming World War I because that was the only war that had happened then. And so
he's like, let me help you.
Yeah, he's like, let me help you. We can take him on. We can do it together. And they're like, yeah. So then we cut to the Old West. We're right on the precipice of this, what's going to happen. Skinner has like prepared the cave that he's in for them, coming in. And it is moon time, I guess, right? So Skinner's vulnerable now, too.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. Like, why would he set this up now? But I guess it just turned out that
I guess that he didn't realize quite yet.
Oh yeah, sure. He didn't know his powers yet because he had just woken up. So he didn't know that he was going to get weak when the moon was gone, and then it just happened. The moon was gone, and so he or like the Pinkertons show up. Everybody shows up pretty much, and you see the vampires are waiting.
Yep.
What's his name?
Percy.
Percy
and his goons.
Yeah, Percy and his other vampires are like, what should we do? And they're like, why don't we wait? And they're like, I'm hungry. They're like, maybe we'll find a snack. And basically they go and kill the buddies of Skinner that are waiting for him to get out. And they're also waiting to like ambush James and the other Pinkerton guy. And so the Pinkertons show up. They go in and
Felix gets burned in the face.
yeah, Felix immediately gets burned in the face, which I was like, holy shit. And then his daughter shows up too. I don't know why they brought the daughter. But the daughter was like, no, I will go with you too. And then it turns out she's a good shot or whatever. So they're like, okay, I guess you can. But she's like, there's a moment where like Felix gets burned. He sees his dad. His dad's head is on a pike. And he's like, no, me papa or whatever. And like, and so he gets burned right away because he like walks into the fucking dark cave. And then, you know, Skinner throws a fucking torch in his face.
Yeah.
And then on the outside of the cave, we still see Brooke is sitting there waiting to go in after. And his daughter, I don't remember what his daughter's name is, but she's like, Jim, I need you to take something with you into that cave. And she fucking kisses him, and he's like, you're my goddaughter. This is weird. We can't do this, you know? Like, it's very weird. I don't know why you would kiss me, but whatever. And then he walks in and he sees Felix is dead, and he's like, oh shit.
Oh no, me amigo.
Yeah, my friend, you died right away. You're like, and then I feel bad for Felix. He didn't really get like a send off or anything. And then his daughter's getting like his daughter's macking on his best friend, who's like, his daughter's like 20 and he's like 50 or some shit, right? So
yeah,
like,
at least.
Yeah, at least because it's 30 years after when he was younger. So I will say maybe he was 25 or something when he was a Pinkerton. I don't know. He might have been 30 or whatever. So, but anyway, he's at least 50, maybe 60, and his daughter's like, you're my love or whatever, even though you're my godfather.
My godfather, yeah.
And so James, like, you know, fights him, and because Skinner's weak, he's able to like kind of get the better of him. He shoots him a couple times, and then they fight, and then there's a big explosion, and basically, I think like I'm not exactly sure what happens. I guess there was no bomb or anything, but like I guess just a gun going off. What happens is the daughter comes in. Felix's daughter runs in and is like, don't hurt. You know, don't hurt James.
I think James gets cornered or whatever after James shoots Skinner, and Skinner gets hurt and whatnot, but then Skinner deflects a bullet
Skinner
later.
Eventually gets the upper hand.
Yeah, Skinner gets the upper hand, and Skinner's going to kill him, but then he's like, you know what will be better than killing you? And he does the blood thing.
Bleeds into his eye.
Yeah, he bleeds into his eye.
So then he's got blood in his eye. The guy doesn't know what'll happen, but Skinner knows that blood in your eyes means you become a vampire. And then the daughter runs in and is like, don't hurt Jim. And so she runs out. She tries to shoot at him, at Skinner. And as he's leaving, she shoots at him and the fucking caves in. I don't know why exactly.
He had some dynamite earlier. So maybe.
Is that what happened? I mean, she didn't shoot the dynamite, so I don't know why. I guess maybe he rigged it so it would. But it ends up blowing up on him, and he gets trapped under a rock. And then
Skinner.
Yeah, Skinner blows up, and then the daughter, Felix's daughter, and James get out. But and then we see that the other vampires also, nothing happens to them because they're like, oh, he's dead.
They're like,
he's stuck in a cave, dead. He got crushed by rocks or whatever, and they don't bother to check it or anything.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of stupid of them, but you know.
Yeah, that's on them though. And yeah, as James and the daughter are walking away or getting on horseback to ride away, like there's like a little red glimmer in James' eyes, so you know, like something's on the horizon.
He definitely got vampired. So
he got damn near vampire.
Yeah, and so then we see next issue we cut to the 20s again, and Pearl and Henry are getting ready for war. They're getting stakes, and they're making stakes to stab people, and they're heading to the house where she got fucking murdered or whatever, and they bust in and they just start murdering people.
They
we see there's some fucked up shit that they're doing. There's another girl who's got her arms and legs cut off, and she's just hanging there by her stumps, naked in this place, I guess, to be like sucked on or whatever.
I assume, yeah, like some.
Also,
weird...
this is a mature title, so there's nudity and fucked up stuff like that, and that they show. So just so you know, and but yeah, she's like just starts murdering them. She makes like a fucking scythe out of wood and like is killing all these motherfuckers. And it's pretty like one-sided. She takes them all on and doesn't really have an issue.
Yeah, I think Henry gets to kill one. He gets a moment, and then it's cool because the main vampire on the side of a block, he gets a hold of Henry. He's like,
"What will you do? You won't kill your lover, will you?" And she's like, "No, but I'll do this." And she like throws her scythe into. He's got a skylight for some
reason. I assume that it's like darkened on the inside, but still weird that he has a skylight in and he's going to have a problem with sunlight.
Yeah, I'm like, don't you have enough money to build your own vampire house? Like it's not like you just bought this house randomly or something. You know? So
yeah, you've been around for years. You should build your own vampire house.
So anyway, she breaks the skylight. It's sunny outside. He didn't know it was sunny outside. He gets burned. He gets totally burned. So and she bursts into flames. And then we also see that later on, like Hattie, had got away from the original fight that they had.
Yeah, and now she's
an actress.
She's an actress.
She's in movies. And someone out of the shadows was like, "Oh, ma'am, can I have your autograph?" And she's like, "Oh, sure." And then she knows, which is pretty funny. She's like, "Sure, no problem." Then she turns. She's like, and it turns out she's a vampire too, and she's an American vampire. I don't remember how she got turned. I guess they turned her. I think they turned her too because they were like, you did a good audition with this, and it showed that I think basically one of the hooded people that threw the bodies was her in the beginning, so she technically threw her friend in the ditch. I think that's what it was implying. Is that what it was?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because she was like Hattie was a hooded figure, like, and it was like a callback, I think, to the very beginning.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that, but
I think so. I just assumed like. Somehow, I guess she was made one of them. I don't know. They don't explain
they reward. That. Oh no, actually they do. I forgot. They show what happened after her friend Pearl, and her fought. There was some broken glass that had Pearl's blood on it, and she stabbed herself with the blood. She made herself a vampire.
Okay, I missed that. Yes. Okay,
so I forgot about that, and then I remember seeing those panels. So anyway, they fight, and she fucking murders Hattie. Like, she just makes her. She's like, "You want this gold fucking star on your door?" Star? And she like shoves the gold star from the door into her fucking mouth and makes her eat it. And
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then Pearl and Henry end up being together. And then we see Skinner, and it's revealed that the guy who I think we were kind of already alluded to this, but the guy that was like the pool dude. He was the guy that was Skinner. We already said he visited her and stuff and left her the note. But he comes back and she's like, "Are you here to kill me?" And he's like, "You're paranoid." But he's like, "Yeah, I actually was going to kill you." But then I thought, maybe it might be fun to have you around or whatever. So
he's like, "Are you sure I can't pull you away from Henry?" She's like, "Nah, I'm good." And he's like, "All right, well, I'll probably see you down the road though."
Yeah. So we assume he's going to come back up or whatever. And they have a nice little moment. And then it's like, "Oh, me and Henry will be in love together forever." And then we cut to the same year now. It's the old man Will is finishing up his little book reading, and he's like, "And that's my book." And then we see someone in the audience is sitting next to the historian that was being a dick, being like, "Vampires don't exist. This is a bunch of
hooey."
Yeah. And then who's sitting next to him but a guy with a candy cane who's got a sharp tooth. And then we see
candy canes.
Yes, yeah, I know it's a candy cane. And then we cut to 1912. So we see what happened to James Brooke. The blood in his eye did, in fact, turn him into a vampire. But he, unlike everybody else, is a strong fucking person. He's got goddamn morals. He will not kill a person.
Willpower.
He got Hal Jordan. Willpower. So he has, he's not eating humans. If he eats anything, it's like a fucking groundhog or whatever, or like a
prairie
dog, whatever they are.
That's way too small to be a groundhog, sir.
Whatever. He's probably killing those too. And so he's just killing animals to survive, but he really, it's not doing anything for him. So he's barely surviving on that. And then also we cut back to like the little reading area or the reading room where Will is reading his book, and we see that Skinner takes the like historian's hand next to him, and he like cuts it, and he's gonna write a note, and he's like, "Why don't you give this to the writer up there at the end of this reading or whatever." So then we cut back to James Brooks in 1912, and he is, like we said, eating animals and whatnot, and he is suffering very bad, and basically he makes his way to his goddaughter, who I don't know if she's seen him since or whatever, but he basically, it must have been a couple days, right? Like that this has happened, because he's eating animals, but maybe he had been walking around for a while. I don't know. Trying not to, he's like, I'm a monster, basically. And he's hangry for sure, because he's like yelling at her and shit. And she's like, no, I love you, James. And he's like, you can't love me. I'm your goddamn, I'm your godfather. And it's like, she kisses him and all this stuff. And then he's just always like dead. Like he's always like looking like he's dead. He's just trying to eat sheep and shit and not kill her. Yeah, basically is what I'm assuming. He looks so skinny and everything. And then like he's like, I need you to do something for me to her. And he's like, I want you to kill me. And he's like, no, like she's like, no, I can't kill you. He's like, yeah. And she's like, well, then you have to do one thing for me. And he's like, I can't do that. And she's like, you have to. If you want me to kill you, you have to fuck me. And so like they make love, and it's weird. And she convinces him to kill him, or he gets her to kill him by sleeping with her, and they have a very passionate scene.
Very weird, very weird, scene.
Very passionate. It's odd.
Meanwhile, I guess people are excavating the old mine.
Yes,
and here this is in the future, and they come across a body that's kind of like withered a bit and
super emaciated. Yeah, he looks way even more than he was in the water this time.
Yeah, and hey, it's Skinner, and as soon as they uncover him enough, he's like, "Sup, fellas!" And he kills the people that
kills them.
But I guess right around that same time, I guess Percy still had some people that were like just going to check. I guess because they had heard that they were going to be like going through the mine,
right?
And so they're able to actually grab Skinner like pretty fast and be like, all right, we're taking you to Percy now.
So he goes to Percy, and I was surprised, but apparently Percy is a weak motherfucker.
Yes.
He is able to pull Percy away right away and just throw him into the sunlight.
I love that Percy the whole time. He's like, well, we can make a deal. It's okay. Like, I don't know why you're so strong, but
we're like family. We're like cousins or whatever.
You want $1 million? I can get you $1 million. That's a lot of money right now. I don't know if you know that.
Like, I don't want your goddamn money. I fucking hate you. I want you dead or whatever. So that's what he does. And in the meantime, like we said, Brooks is fucking his goddaughter. And then he basically gets her to shoot him in the head on a moonless night. So that way it's like quick, and she doesn't have to like stab him in the heart or whatever. I don't even know if wood works on them, but
yeah,
they haven't said that yet. I'm sure that's going to come up later on in future books.
Probably since it's a bad thing for the old vampires, it's probably not as bad for them.
Yeah. And then we see also, this was interesting, I thought, when William is at the grave of James Brooke, and the goddaughter is there, Felix's goddaughter, and she has a baby. Mm-hmm. And she's like, it's his baby. Come on, baby girl. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Half vampire baby?
So it means half vampire baby. So this would be probably even different type of vampire.
Yeah, something,
because it was born vampire, like Blade.
Like Blade?
It's gonna be like female Blade.
Or like what's that movie? Underworld? Michael?
She's going to bring them together.
Yeah. But anyway, so then, like we said, Will Bunting is writing his book, and he meets her at the graveyard, and he's like, oh, can I tag along? So I'm assuming they have some more adventures or whatever that are in the book. He finishes his story finally, and he's like, and that's it. I'm done. And then people are like, what about the baby? He's like, some of that stuff I'm not going to tell you about that stuff. It's not in the book. And then he gets a note from the historian that looks very scared now, and apparently believes in vampires. And he's like, "Oh, will you sign my book or whatever?" And then he hands him a note, and it says, "Dear Scribbler, you are old and I am young for eternity, so I let you live to suffer and die. Why not? What better revenge is there than that? Here's an autograph for you," and it says Skinner Sweet, and he like signed it in blood, and he signed it in that historian's blood, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So yeah, then we see Skinner Sweet is now. I'm assuming it's later on in the 20s. I'm not sure exactly, but we see he's walking the streets, and then who's there waiting? But we see Felix's daughter, and James's daughter, who's Felix's daughter's daughter. So
yeah.
and
her eyes are a little.
Yeah, her eyes are a little red. She looks weird. Her name's Felicia, and Felicia says, "Is he?" And then I wish I knew her name. I don't remember her name, but she says, the mom says, "Yes, Felicia, the man who destroyed your father, but not today. Soon." Yeah, and so we leave it at that.
So said she's gonna be a female Blade. She's a vampire hunter.
Yeah, that's true. She could probably like be hunters. Like, that'd be badass. I'm sure that's what happens in the future of this book. But basically, that's the book. It was fucking fantastic.
It was great.
I want to read more of this. I kind of, probably am gonna pick it up. I was like, there was an omnibus of this, and I never looked at it because I was like, who cares? And I totally wouldn't mind having that omnibus now. Now I'm pissed off, and they're writing more stuff now. Like Scott Snyder's still writing the stories now. They're coming out kind of like Hellboy, where like he'll do like 6 issues, and then.
For this?
Yeah, for this series.
Oh, that's cool.
He's got one called American Vampire 1976 right now.
Oh.
And I think it's Skinner on a motorcycle is what the cover was, at least for the first.
Oh, nice. Issue. Like Easy Rider?
It looks more like punk-ish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, late 70s, not 60s.
Yeah. So but yeah, it looked cool, and like I said, this book was fucking fantastic. I know we went a little longer than normal on this, but good God, there was a lot of story, and it was very, very well done, and we wanted to give it a full.
Yeah, and even though like you said, like it was a little longer than some of our normal ones, but it didn't feel like it at all. Like I was engaged, and like you said, every time one story would leave you in a cliffhanger, it jumped into the next one, and you were like, oh, okay, that's okay. What are these guys up to again? It
changed it up in a nice, a nice way. I was like, wow, man, more comics should do this shit, but like, you gotta do what you gotta do. So, but I enjoyed that this was the only comic I've ever read that has that format, and it was done really well, and it was done by 2 really good writers, and I didn't really feel like a giant transition between either, and yeah. So, anyway, on that note, John, what would you give American Vampire?
It is getting a 9 from me. Wow. I really, really enjoyed it. I also am a big vampire story guy, and I like, especially when they're able to introduce new lore that is like unique and different enough, and not
the new lore as well.
Not unique and different enough, but not Twilight.
Right, and it kept the old lore, so it didn't change any of the stuff you already like and love. It was like, no, that's still thing.
Nah, that's just European vampires.
Also, American vampires.
Yeah,
and so I enjoyed that.
That was fun. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to give this a 9 as well. I really want to read more of it. It's a quick read too. Like I wasn't like. Bogged down by it necessarily. So
if y'all like it, maybe we'll read on a future episode. Yeah, maybe we'll read the next volume. We're going to read it, but maybe we'll read it for you guys.
I'll read it and then we'll talk
spoil
about
it for you guys.
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was fantastic. A 9 for this. Art was fantastic. Writing was fantastic. I love Stephen King. I read so much of his fucking books that like this didn't even feel like a Stephen King book or anything. But I wonder if him and Scott Snyder
we'll see how the
worked on the concept together. Well, that's true. I don't know if he writes future stuff.
So oh, okay.
I don't know if it was just his first 6 issues or whatever, first 5 issues. But I wonder if him and Scott Snyder worked on the concept at all, and that's what like he contributed at first, because it does feel like a Stephen King concept, like the idea of there's American vampires, and like we're gonna build their lore, and it's different a little bit from other lore. I enjoy that. So, and every time we talk, every time you see a vampire, they're always European. And if they go anywhere different, they're on a boat and they got to take fucking European soil with them and shit. So it makes sense that wherever they would go, there'd be like, depending on where the world they go, it would have like a different effect when they turn someone or whatever. So, I don't know. I enjoyed the lore. We give it both 9. So we highly recommend this one. Everybody should check this out, especially if you like vampires or like horror comics for sure. This has a lot of fun gore and blood and all that shit in it too. So like, I enjoyed it for that because I'm a big horror fan as well. Once again, I don't know how I missed this book. No one was talking about it when I was, I guess, I was working. I think that's what it was. It was right when I got my new job and I was like, no time for comics, time to work. So, I'm, working overtime and all that shit. So, I must have missed it, just slipped through the cracks. But now we're reading it. Now we're rectifying that. Luckily, everything's still in print, I think, at least digitally. So, is there anything else you want to go over in this one?
No, I feel good about that.
All right. Well, then next week we're gonna read Wolverine Old Man Logan. The original Old Man Logan, not the series Old Man Logan, but the ones that were actually issues in the Wolverine comic that were called. The storyline is called Old Man Logan. So it's the first time Old Man Logan's ever been talked about or anything. It's the original storyline of that. So it should be
not
cool.
Hugh Jackman Old Man Logan.
No, but this is big. I think this story has nothing to do with the movie, but it's kind of like what the movie
was kind of loosely based on.
By.
Yeah,
it's not based on that at all, but it's loosely inspired by this book. Just the idea that Logan's old. Okay, we got it. They read the title and they're like, "I got a movie.
We got it.
We got it." So
we don't need to read it.
You know what? That's what it feels like they did that for most movies back in the day. They'd be like, "Captain America. I don't need to read anything. I got the story.
Got it.
Fantastic Four. Got it." Like, I saw the cover. I'm good. Like,
I see that the woman's turning invisible. That one guy, he lights himself on fire somehow.
Yeah, there's a rock man.
One guy's a rock man.
Right, cool. So yeah, we're gonna read that and either read it with us and hear our thoughts, or let us spoil the fuck out of it for you. So and be sure to check out. We're trying to do some more stuff on YouTube. Trying to get some movies out. I'm doing more reviews on TV shows and stuff. So I did Invincible. We did the Justice League, Zack Snyder cut. So I'm going to try to keep up with some stuff where we might be doing some trailer reactions. I saw that there was the Long Halloween animated movie coming out. We could also do like reviews of the animated movies that came out from DC, because I haven't seen most of those. We've seen the superhero stuff, but I haven't seen most of like the regular superhero stuff, but I haven't seen most of the animated DC movies. So we might do those too. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We got some more content coming to you. But yeah, check out our Instagram and all that stuff. What else we got there, John?
Yeah, YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all those. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. I always
iTunes.
Forget that too, iTunes. And don't forget to check out our Instagram and Twitter. We got a lot of content that we're throwing out there too, and we definitely want to have a subscriber contest here soon. We're getting pretty close. We're almost at 3,000 on Facebook and almost at 2,000 on Instagram.
Yeah, once we reach those, we will be giving out
some
cards.
Comixology gift cards.
Yes, so you just get it for free. You just got to do what we say, and we randomly pick someone from the comments or whatever we're going to do, and then
that's free money for comic books.
Free money for comics. So we've already done this before, so you can look back and see and ask those people who we said won. If they won, we give them stuff. We gave them stuff. So, on that note, we'll see you guys next time.
On the next one.
Bye.